As most of you know, over the weekend there was another tragic killing of a U.S. citizen by ICE agents, Alex Pretti, and a lot of people are rightfully outraged about it. Unfortunately, those right-wing MAGA Trump dick riding grifters, they tried to justify the murder of Alex Pretti, and the video evidence pretty much proves, without a shadow of doubt, that not once did Pretti pull out his gun. Yes, he did have a gun. It was holstered. He had a license to conceal carry, and that is a right that Americans have. It's called the Second Amendment. MAGA Trump right-wing douchebags who used to support the Second Amendment. I guess that's just words. Doesn't really mean anything, right? But yeah, it's very sad that another innocent U.S. citizen has died because of ICE. And a few weeks ago, I made a video about reforming ICE. I have pretty much changed my mind. I think that ICE needs to be abolished, but I think we need to go a step further, which is why I think that what we should do is dismantle the Department of Homeland Security. So in case some of you don't know, the Department of Homeland Security was established back in 2001 following the terrorist attacks on 9/11. Now, we can debate what was going on with 9/11. I know there's a lot of theories out there, but let's just talk about the aftermath, right? Because before 9/11, Department of Homeland Security did not exist. There were various other agencies that eventually were merged into the Department of Homeland Security, but they were part of other departments. Like, for example, INS. It was basically tasked with immigration. That was under, I believe, the Department of Justice. And then you had other departments and agencies like the Secret Service, the Coast Guard. We'll talk about those in a moment. But the point is, over the past 2 decades, thanks to the Department of Homeland Security and, of course, the Patriot Act, the country has been feeling more and more like a police state, which is something a lot of us have been concerned about for a quick minute. But I think that it has come to a head with what has happened with ICE. For the record, I do believe in legal immigration to this country, and I do think there are some very dangerous people that have come here illegally that need to be removed. And I think that should be the top priority for ICE or the INS, because I would like to see us go back to the INS, like when it comes to removing terrorists or extremists or like members of gangs, cartels, foreign agents from enemy nations. Like, the worst of the worst are the illegals that we should be focusing on detaining and removing from our country. Those are the top priority, in my opinion. But yeah, a few weeks ago, I did put out that video about why I think we should reform ICE, but I just don't think there's any saving ICE at this point. They're clearly violating citizens' constitutional rights, whether it's your First Amendment, your Second Amendment, in the case of Alex Pretti, or your Fourth Amendment rights, as I've cited before in previous videos. They do not care about the Constitution and our Bill of Rights and our amendments, and that is extremely dangerous. All agencies of government, law enforcement at the local level, state level, and federal level have to follow our Constitution and Bill of Rights. Either the law stands for all of us and applies for all of us, or none of us. And that's one thing I get sick and tired of, is this double standard, or this whole justification about how and why they don't have to follow the rule of law. But the fun fact is you do. You don't have immunity. And I believe that the individuals responsible for Renee Good's death, as well as Alex Pretti's death, and the violation of other rights of U.S. citizens that have been wrongfully harassed and intimidated and detained, and also even stories out of the detention centers now. So yeah, there was leaked videos I was just talking about of an immigration center up in Baltimore, Maryland, allegedly, where they are reporting stories of not having showers for 10 plus days. They're all confined in this room, which looks horrific. This is not a way to treat people. This is not very humane. They deserve proper bedding, proper housing, proper clothing, 3 meals a day. And apparently it's even worse than that, because going 10 days without a shower is bad enough. I mean, that's terrible hygiene right there. but beatings, tortures, as well as some reports of rape and even murder in some of these detention centers. There's also a detention center in Texas where they're taking the kids, and apparently the kids were in the detention center, and you could hear the kids like screaming, "Let us out." So this is no way to treat other human beings. Yes, these people are here illegally, but they deserve to be treated a lot better than this, especially since most of these individuals are only guilty of one thing, and that's coming to the country illegally. Okay, so we're going to go to Wikipedia, and I'm going to talk about the Department of Homeland Security. As we already cited, it was established after 9/11, officially March 1st, 2003, and it took several other agencies and combined them together under DHS, and that includes the Customs Service, which was originally part of Treasury, INS, which was part of the Justice Department, the Federal Protection Service, which was part of General Services Administration, TSA, which was under Transportation, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center under Treasury, Plant Health Inspection, part of it was under Agriculture. The FEMA didn't exist then, so I guess FEMA could become its own separate entity going forward. Strategic National Stockpile was under HHS, along with the National Disaster Medical System. The Nuclear Incident Response Team was under Energy. The Domestic Energy Support Team was under Justice. The Center for Domestic Preparedness was under Justice, as well as specifically the FBI. And then the list goes on and on. Like the CBRN was under Energy, Environmental Measures under Energy, National Biological Warfare was under Defense. And see what else we got. We got Federal Computer Incident Response Center was under the General Services Administration. See, National Communications System was under Defense. The National Infrastructure Protection Center was under the FBI and the Justice Department. Emergency Energy Security and Assurance Program under Energy. The Coast Guard was under Transportation. I always thought the Coast Guard was under the Navy. I guess I was wrong about that. And then the U.S. Secret Service was originally under the Treasury because its original mandate was to go after counterfeiters. And then later on, it was also assigned to protect the President of the United States. Along with doing away with ICE, I believe that immigration needs to go back to the Justice Department and INS restored. So do away with ICE and prosecute any of these individuals that have been violating citizens' constitutional rights, including those responsible for the murders of Renee Good as well as Alex Pretti. And maybe there's some decent ones within the organization that could fall back under INS, which would be about, I guess, Border Patrol as well, because I do believe in securing our borders. But I think there's a better way to handle illegal immigration than what we've seen in the past year now under Trump's ICE. Now, this is what I am proposing, that the Department of Homeland Security, which once again was formed in the wake of the 9/11 attacks, along with the passage of the Patriot Act, and I think that the Patriot Act should also be removed as well, by the way. Many Americans, including myself, have been worried that this would ultimately become a foundation for a police state, which has sadly come to pass 2 decades later. So I'm calling on the Democrats, if they do end up back in power in the midterms, with the midterm elections coming up, and it does seem like, because of a lot of things that have been done that have become very divisive thanks to the Trump administration, his push for Greenland, as well as the tariffs, which are hurting Americans, the growing national debt, and of course, what we see happening on the streets of America, thanks to ICE violating the rights of citizens, as well as the murders of Renee Good and Alex Pretti. I believe that the Democrats will most likely retake the House and the Senate. And I think one thing they should seriously consider doing is dismantling the Department of Homeland Security and restore the pre-9/11 agencies such as INS. I think that there is some Republicans that would be on board with this, like Representative Massey, Senator Rand Paul, maybe a few others. Most of them, unfortunately, will be against it, probably for reasons. But I think this could go a step towards restoring civil liberties as well as faith in the political process, and dismantle the police state. Because, yeah, we have these various agencies. They've been around for a quick minute, as I just went over a moment ago, and obviously necessary, I believe. But they did not need to all be under the Department of Homeland Security. They were fine where they were originally. So I would restore the Customs Service to Treasury, as well as, once again, the like the Secret Service back to Treasury, Coast Guard, Transportation, and especially this one. This is the big one right here for me. I mean, the rest of them are also big in their own right, but let's restore INS and send the Border Patrol back to the border where they should be, in the northern border and the southern border, and bring an end to ICE. Now, unfortunately, I don't think that ICE is going to get shut down anytime soon. I know there's a lot of senators that are pushing to withhold additional funding for ICE, which could lead to a government shutdown. But no thanks to the big, beautiful bill, ICE already has a ton of money to continue operating, even if there is a government shutdown coming up in a few days from now. Whether or not the Democrats come across this idea from me or from others is irrelevant. I would very much like to see this become a reality, though, the call to dismantle the Department of Homeland Security and restore INS and do away with ICE completely. But I think there's other things that can be done much sooner, like, for example, certain individuals fired and perhaps even prosecuted. Miller needs to be fired. The head of the Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, needs to be fired. Commander Bovino needs to be fired. And then ICE agents responsible for Renee Good's deaths, as well as Alex Pretti's deaths, and other ICE agents that have been violating the rights of U.S. citizens, whether it's First Amendment, Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment rights violated. If there's evidence to prove that rights were in fact violated, these ICE agents should be held accountable, because I believe nobody's above the law. They should be fired and, if necessary, prosecuted, especially the individuals that were responsible for the deaths of Renee Good, as well as Alex Pretti. In my opinion, neither one of them deserved to be killed. I've talked about Renee's Good deaths a few times. Alex Pretti was an ICU nurse who saved lives and meant the world to his family and to his colleagues. And his last act was actually saving a woman from being harassed by ICE. And the only thing he was doing was documenting them with his camera, which you have a right to do under the First Amendment. And then he was outnumbered. He was dragged to the ground. And because he happened to have a gun on him, which was once again holstered, and he had the legal right under the Second Amendment and concealed carry to carry that gun, they killed him for it. They shot him multiple times after they had taken the gun off of him. There's video evidence out there. I don't give a shit if there's any remaining MAGA, right-leaning, grifting, Trump dick riding pieces of shit out there to say otherwise. The video speaks for itself. The evidence is right there. It's hard to deny it. And no, I do not think this is grounds to go after the Second Amendment. And I just can't believe I see so-called Republicans and conservatives, and they're not really real conservatives, by the way. They're not real pro-Second Amendment. If they're going to try and toe the Trump line on this issue and call for some sort of, I don't think it's going to happen, but if they're coming out against the Second Amendment, that's a very bad move for anybody that claims to be a Republican, or anyone that claims to be a conservative or pro-Second Amendment. I mean, you're not pro-Second Amendment if that's the side you choose to be on. So you have another side here. You have actual conservatives and liberals and moderates and libertarians and independents that are pro-Second Amendment. Are like, no, wait a minute. Alex had a right to have that gun. And no, Miller, he's not a terrorist. And no, he's not. I know Miller said he was an assassin, which was completely bullshit, by the way. One of many reasons why that douchebag deserves to be shit canned. And then Noem deserves to be fired as well, because she's handled her time running DHS extremely poorly, and a lot of people have suffered because of it. So she deserves to be fired. Bovino deserves to be fired. And yeah, they've lied repeatedly over the past several weeks about Renee Good, and over the weekend about Alex Pretti. They've called him an assassin. They've called him a domestic terrorist, along with all these other grifting talking heads that are, trying to toe the line and sell the propaganda, but none of us are falling for it anymore. I mean, especially when you see the evidence of your own eyes from multiple recordings from people that were there witnessing it take place. So, yeah, I do think that heads need to roll. Not literally. I know some people would like to see that, but I want to see justice happen here. I want to see these people held accountable and fired, and if necessary, prosecuted and perhaps even put behind bars. Now, I know some people want to go a step further. Look, myself included, I think that the blame does go all the way to the top of the administration with the president and with the vice president. Neither one of them have tried to turn the temperature down. I think Trump might be trying to do that today, but at the same time, it feels like the damage has already been done. A growing majority of the American people have turned against Trump for many reasons, not just because of what's happening with ICE agents in Minneapolis and other parts of the country, but also with the tariffs, which has harmed more of us, and with him trying to take Greenland, turning most of our NATO allies against us. I talked more about that in my previous video regarding Trump's first year. Well, his second administration's first year. If you want to go watch that, feel free and do so. But yeah, I think that the Democrats should seriously consider, as part of their 2026 platform, the push to eventually dismantle ICE and restore the pre 9/11 agencies, including INS.